Good morning, dear students. This is Mr. Gamal with the new lesson of culture to continue our lesson about Vietnam history or El Vietnamese history. Last times we discussed or explained how the Chinese or China always wanted to control Vietnam and take control of it or take it as a whole, and try to affect its culture, its language, its beliefs and religion, but it was in vain. It was useless because the Vietnamese were very much stuck to their culture and religion and language. So the Chinese effect was low, was not very effective, was not very high. All right, now this is Vietnamese independence. Look at the page. This is page 359. 359. Vietnamese independence, Vietnamese freedom from China. All right, let's read together and explain. For the next 900 years, China continued to rule over the Vietnamese people. So China controlled Vietnam for about 1,000 years, 900 years in exactly. Chinese rule was sometimes strong and sometimes weak, depending on the strength of the Chinese emperor. So when the ruler of China was strong, so the rule of China on Vietnam was strong. If the ruler or the emperor was weak, so the rule in Vietnam was weak, and so on. Chinese control over Vietnamese lands finally ended under China's Tang dynasty. This is very important. So when a weak dynasty came, it is called Tang dynasty, a family of rulers or kings. All right, this family was weak. So at that time, the Vietnamese will take their independence or freedom. In the early 900s AD, the Tang dynasty began to decline, began to fall down. It became more difficult for the Tang leaders to keep control over lands far from their capital. So it was very hard for the Chinese to control the lands far from their capital, the capital of China, all right, Beijing or Peking. So they can't control far from it. They can't control lands outside China. In 939 AD, not long after the Tang dynasty fell, so when the dynasty fell, the Vietnamese people became independent again. So they took their freedom. Through more than 1,000 years of Chinese rule, the Vietnamese had kept much of their early culture. As I told you before, the Vietnamese are very much stuck to their culture, religion, language, and beliefs. It is very hard, or it was very hard for anyone to rid them of this or make them away from this. They had not given up the Vietnamese language. So all these 1,000 years, the Chinese couldn't affect the Vietnamese language or make them take the Chinese language, or lost their culture's influences from southeastern Asia. The Vietnamese had gained independence, but their lands were not stable. This is something usual. It happened when some country was under control of another, and then it took its independence. It won't be stable very quickly. It will take time till it came to security and stability. All right. What happened after this? After the independence or the freedom from Chinese rule, warlords like the high people in the army fought one another for control. So there was civil conflict inside the country. They were fighting together. Vietnamese themselves were fighting each other for what? For control, to rule the country. Rose to power and quickly fell. It means some of them take power, became the king, but they fell down quickly. Finally, the Li dynasty. This is a very strong dynasty, a family of kings or rulers, unified the people in 1001. Unified the people, so they controlled all Vietnam and make it united. The new Vietnamese kingdom was called Dai Viet, or Dai Viet. All right, this is the first, or one of the early kingdoms, strong kingdoms in Vietnam. All right, let's continue. The next page, 360. This is the end of the lesson, right? The capital was established at Hanoi. So the capital city of this kingdom, Vietnam, or Dai Viet, was called what? It's Hanoi, which is the capital of present-day Vietnam. It is the same. Till now, it is the same city, or capital city. The Lai rulers, or Li rulers of Dai Viet, set up a strong central government. As in China, special schools were built to teach government officials how to govern. All right, this is in government. So they built schools to teach certain persons how to govern and control the country. Buddhism, this is kind of a type of belief in that part of the world. Buddhism, which had arrived under Chinese rule, grew during this period. So Chinese brought to Vietnam this way of belief, Buddhism. It is like a religion. It is not a heavenly religion, but some wisdom of some wise person, all right? And the people at that area, China and around it, believe in this and even worship that Buddha or that statue of Buddha. It is well known there. Buddhism, which had arrived under Chinese rule, grew during this period. So this is the effect of China on Vietnam. The Li kingdom lasted until the 13th century, 1300. All right, this is the end of this part about Vietnam. The question, homework question, you can answer it and send it on the LMS. What event in China helped the Vietnamese gain independence? What event in China helped the Vietnamese gain independence? In simple words, what helped the Vietnamese to be free from the China or Chinese rule? All right? Take care. Inshallah, next week, end of next week, will be a quiz about Vietnam. All right? Be ready for this and study for it. All right, and then Korea, we'll start Korea, but this is the end of Vietnam. All right, thank you. See you again. Goodbye.